Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Jeff Heilman Project. We sure hope that you enjoyed our guest star from last week, the podcast host for a podcast called Dating Chit, C-H-I-T. She was fascinating, and T, we want to shout out to you and say thank you for being on this show. Check it out. It was a great, fun, and a good episode.
I thought it was good.
Yeah, we watched it through and really enjoyed having the conversation. But we don't have a guest this week. This week I read something that really stood out that has been, when you read something and you can't get over it, but you reference it periodically again and again, and you send it to friends. I even took a screenshot and I sent it to my best friend just because I was like, this paragraph is lit. And so since I thought it was lit, I thought maybe you might benefit from it as well. And so I'm going to read this little paragraph out. The book that I'm reading from is called The Disciplined Life, and it was written by Richard Shelley Taylor. It was written in 1962, so we're going way back. The beginning quote on the front page says, "Discipline must ever precede liberty," by H. Orton Wiley. So anyways, if you're interested at all about discipline, discipleship, or even just learning by way of practice and repetitive habits, this is a great foundational book. And this is the paragraph. I'm going to read it, and then Jeff and I are going to a little chit chat over it because I think it was so. Yes, exactly. Chit. I just thought it was such a great thing. And if you're driving in your car right now listening to this podcast,
pull over so you don't crash into your neighbor from laughing, right? No?
I just thought that it might be something that you could kind of zen out for a moment.
Let's zen out,
Okay,
baby.
so here it is. The edge possessed by the disciplined over the undisciplined shows up in many little things. The disciplined person picks up his clothes. The undisciplined person lets them lie. One washes the bathtub after himself. The other leaves the high water mark for someone else to scrub. One plans his work and works to his plan. The other works haphazardly. One is habitually prompt in his appointments. The other is notoriously tardy. Some people are always on time at church, while others never are. Observers of many years' experience will support the claim that the difference cannot be explained in the greater distance to travel or larger families to hustle. The difference is habit, and habit is character.
Can you read it again? And I want to pull keywords from that. It's really good.
I love it. I think that it was the whole book basically surmised into one little paragraph, and we can glean so much from it.
You have an edge.
Okay. The edge possessed by the disciplined over the undisciplined shows up in many little things. The disciplined person picks up his clothes. The undisciplined lets them lie. One washes the bathtub after himself. The other leaves the high water mark for someone else to scrub. One plans his work and works to his plan, and the other works haphazardly. One is habitually prompt in his appointments, and the other is notoriously tardy. Some people are always on time at church, while others never are. Observers of many years of experience will support the claim that the difference cannot be explained in the greater distance to travel or the larger families to hustle. The difference is habit, and habit is character.
This is really good. Discipline versus undisciplined. I would have to say that you and I are extremely disciplined people.
I think that it's important as you read the book and you go through it. It is on Amazon. They have reprinted it. The difference of talking not a heavy-handed discipline from the position of an abuse of power, but discipleship. And when he's using the word discipline, more often than not, it is at the point of practice. You do not want a surgeon who is undisciplined, undiscipled, without practice, doing surgery on you. So just like you don't want that, how are we approaching our lives? Are we taking the same type of practice? Are we taking the same type of discipleship and being able to craft our days and craft the way that other people perceive us? Am I being crafted into someone who's always on time, or am I being crafted to someone who's always tardy? It's my discipline or my discipleship to be in a practice of always being on time that makes it so. And it is a reflection of habit, which is why I think this book is so important, because it's actually it's taking the negative connotations and the stigma around discipline and bringing it back into the perspective of habit. We all have habits. We're either going to be habitually early or habitually late. We're going to be the guy that cleans out the bathtub, or we're going to be the guy that leaves the ring around the bathtub when we're done bathing. It's all a function of habit, and what habits have we created, because that really does speak to our character.
What made you think to read that passage today?
Well, I was thinking about it because you were very excited this morning about your new algorithms, which you've started to put into place based on going through your closet,
my laundry algorithm,
going through your wardrobe. And I thought that this is, these are topics that people don't necessarily talk about, but it's very much a reality in how we live as human beings, because you don't watch a masterclass on how to put your clothes away or wardrobe. You don't watch a masterclass on, like whether you're the guy that leaves the bathtub ring or not. And so being able to talk about it and say, like, this is real life. This is real life things.
It is. And we live in a very small space. We have nine people. Well, between 8 and 10, let's say, on a regular basis, not including guests for, Sunday dinner, or people that come and stay with us, or people who've lived with us in the last, few months, in living in 2,000 square feet, which, some people would say, oh gosh, Japan has half as many square foot, but we have twice as many people.
Yeah.
And so to have effectively 9 people living in 2,000 square feet is, if you look at the number of people per square foot, it's got to be, toward the lower end, because even if you have, a wife and 2 kids and you live in a 2-bedroom apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment, still the overall square footage is 250 square feet per person. We don't have that.
No.
Right. So I don't have a lot of space for clothes, which is not an excuse. I have enough space, but it's not infinite amounts. And I've accumulated a ton of clothes. Like, I've probably given away 4 or 5 30-gallon trash bags of clothes in the last 2 years, and kept only my favorite stuff, which is still a couple hundred pounds worth of clothing. And if you don't have a system, basically the only system that works for me, drawers don't work, bins don't work, hampers don't work as a storage facility, because it's just too much. It's too much clothes. And so the only thing that works for me is to hang them. They have to be vertical. That's the way to do it, is to get everything flat, and I have enough closet space to do it. But and we also have offsite storage. We have a 2-car garage that is 2 separate podcast rooms plus parking for one of the nicer vehicles that we have. And so what I started thinking is, look, I've got to be able to take subsets. I've basically got to run what I do in my business, which is an OODA loop. I've got to be able to run OODA loops against my hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of garments, which have basically just been collected and pulled ad hoc. And what I found in actually applying these algorithms is I have way more clothes than I need, not necessarily that I want, but I have way more clothes than I need, so I can start thinking in terms of a systematization, looking at anything from lean manufacturing and 6 Sigma best practices to Marie Kondo to SPACE from Julie Morgenstern's book, Organization from the Inside Out. if you've already thinned everything out to where it's just your favorite stuff, and you have, call it 1 unit of storage for that unit of stuff, then the question becomes, what is your process? I mean, I'm a process person. I think in terms of process, just how I'm wired. My question is what is my process to return each article of clothing in time to the status of ready for use?
Yeah.
Right? Which means cleaned or dry cleaned, pressed, hanging, available to be viewed, and then eventually cataloged inside of ChatGPT for all wardrobe selections, so I don't have to think about that kind of stuff at all. I can stay focused on my goals. Because I don't want to use glycogen out of my brain for anything that I could get a computer to decide for me, like the route to get to the concert that we're going to tomorrow night, what to wear, what to eat, what to cook, how to cook it. I don't want to me, that is not my best use. That's not the highest leverage use of my glycogen and dopamine reserves. So I actually spent a considerable amount of time yesterday going through ChatGPT, going through personal expectations, algorithms, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing best principles, and then these other 2 books plus David Allen's Getting Things Done, to try to figure out how can I come up with a system that's repeatable, that gives me binary yes-no decision making, and treat it like Federal Express, where all packages every night that are overnight packages all go through Memphis. I want all packages to go through my little love seat in my room as my depot, and then eventually I'll have an inbox, right? But that was my inboxes are overflowing right now. So I did that, and I was able to get through the first 2 stages of the algorithm within, 3 or 4 hours, and effectively extract all of the laundry, which not dirty laundry that can no longer be worn without cleaning. So that was fun. That was like step 1.
At the beginning of the year, we rebranded the Jeff Heilman Project by beginning to quote the line, your podcast for the systematizing of success. And the reason why that is I'm so glad that Andrew came up with that and it became such a mantra for this podcast, is because in order for us to be able to function effectively, and not just function and thrive where we're at right now, but to scale and to be able to be open to multiplication, which is, I think, something that every entrepreneur, every business owner, every family at some point that has a long-term vision of multiplication, kids, grandkids, cousins, families, you have to be able to take a building block, Jeff calls it the mosaics, and begin with one that is successfully repeatable. In 1948, 20 years before this book, The Disciplined Life, a man called Frank Gilbreth Jr., who was an efficiency expert, actually wrote the book Cheaper by the Dozen, and maybe you know the movie with Steve Martin, and that was a funny take on it. But if you go back and you actually watch the original Cheaper by the Dozen, based on the original actual person, Frank Gilbreth, he had 12 children. And as an efficiency expert, this is how they made their living, was consulting and going into, this is a time, you got to look at it at the industrial age and the assembly line. And he's going in and he's giving engineering advice on how you can be more efficient. And so, for example, this podcast, Andrew has I don't even know, maybe Andrew, you could pop on. Do you know how many list items that you check through before we even get to the point that Dad and I are sitting here?
Your standard operating procedure.
You have
Andrew.
A standard operating procedure.
Basically I just got to get in here and make sure everything's on and in the right position. I operate out of this space
Do you have a checklist with a spreadsheet or something that you kind of go through? Or like, for example,
even if it's a mental checklist.
If you had to step away for a day, someone could come in and just go off your checklist and be like, dot, 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 dot. And then, so that's scaling. That's That's efficiency. So we have Sunday dinners on Sunday nights that we're beginning to open up to, as many people as can come. And initially you might think, oh my God, what if 30 people came? Well, you know what? We can scale because of the checklist. I have the tables, they go here. I know where the placemats are, they go here. We have a day dedicated for buying the paper plates, they go there. So being able to be efficient is a character trait and habit from being disciplined and being in the practice of being able to function like a engine can easily and effectively, but also with the intention that it can continue beyond you, which is what this is all about. It's what the Jeff Heilman Project is about. It's what this podcast is about. It's about what we're attempting to do by leaving our legacy worth of tips and tricks, is so that if the day will come when Jeff and I are no longer here, but our children can pick up the checklists, pick up the habits, pick up the understanding that there are processes that can be put into place so that you can just plug in and go off and be successful and continue to be successful.
Yeah, if we move from, you were talking about clothes, so we kind of covered that.
Yeah.
The bathtub situation. I know Madeline didn't like it when I left the dirty bath water. So I've gotten better about doing that. And then plan your work and work your plan. So if I look at WinStack, which is my branded peak performance mental toughness algorithm, which literally through my own research I just found out maps almost verbatim word for word for how the U.S. Navy SEALs do it. My 5-step process, again, 5-step process, number 1 is identity. Number 2 is state. Number 3 is constraint. Number 4 is systems and automation. And number 5 is controlled aggression. That is my work, my plan my work. I have a mosaic system, which to me is a 3.5-hour block of time. I've got 6 of those each day. First one starts at 4:30. Second one starts at 7:30. First one starts at 4, second one starts at 7:30, third one starts at 11:30, fourth one starts at 2 p.m., fifth one starts at 6 o'clock, and the last one starts at 9:30. And each of those have a dedicated standard operating procedure for each of those periods of time. And just to give you an idea, like, what do I do? What's my first mosaic of the day? First mosaic of the day is the power of prayer and meditation before bed, setting my intention and running a mental movie of the life that I want to live. That's mosaic 1, and it takes place from 9:30 when I go to bed until 4 a.m. when I wake up. Then mosaic 2 is my biggest constraint, and I work through ChatGPT prompts and my pure signal card to figure out what's the biggest constraint for the day that I'm working on. And I treat my entire business from 0 to multi-billion-dollar enterprise as a single assembly line, and I go and I look for hot spots through those, and I literally condition over and over and over. And I work the first hour to 3 hours of my morning is absolutely attacking the biggest constraint from an identification and simplification and first principles perspective. Then mosaic 3, I click over into manager mode at 7:30 a.m. We'll either go to breakfast, we'll talk about our day, or I'll start hitting a standard operating list of standard operating procedure checklist to manage everything from taxes, maintenance, cars, budget, finance, checks, bills, payment, vendors, meetings that need to be done, prospecting, anything that's already in the calendar, anything that's automated. We've got a standard operating procedure for that for Mosaic 3. And then Mosaic 4 kicks in at 11 o'clock. I typically go to the gym, and I'll work out from 11 to 2:30, and then 2:30 until 6 is downtime. So I'll go take a nap, rest, lie down, read, pray, watch videos on, I was watching one on the restoration and microscope investigation of the color of paint used by Van Gogh in his chair in the bedroom. And they did a restoration of it from the light blue, which is what we see in the museum today, to the original lavender colors. Like, I just geek out on museum stuff.
Our grandparents.
And then we have dinner at 6, and then I go to bed.
Both of our grandpas. Mine was an engineer in the Air Force. Yours was, in essence, an engineer, airplane pilot in the Marines. And they wouldn't go 2 feet without some form of a checklist for something. I will never forget, we had, whenever we would go camping, Grandpa had a laminated clipboard hanging by the door to the RV, and it had everything that you would need to go camping and enjoy your time camping. And he had that one of those black wax pencils, that you would check off. And then there was the other form, which was that when you're packing to go home, there was a whole nother checklist so that you wouldn't forget what you left behind in order to be able to have a successful return trip and not leave anything behind. The same with my dad. We're very fortunate to have some very analytical, I'm very fortunate to have some very analytical, very linear thinking men and women in the family that have put forth a character habit example of discipleship and discipline in these practices. I want to make sure to be very clear, the practice of doing life and the practice of being able to not be stranded. I think that is one of the worst feelings, more than stress, more than sadness, more than depression. I feel like being stranded, feeling like you're stranded, leads like the domino effect to all the other emotions because you just feel ill-equipped. Being ill-equipped leads to feeling embarrassed. It leads to feeling ashamed. It leads to feeling depressed. I mean, the whole thing, when you feel like you are not prepared and you are ill-equipped, you feel awful. It feels awful. And so being able to hopefully give you guys the equipment to walk into any situation, assess the situation you're heading into, have some discipline to sit back for a second and make a list of everything you might need for that situation that you're going into, looking at it from all of the different perspectives and the different facets, and then being able to walk in head held high, knowing that you are prepared for your meeting, prepared for your environment. I think it was John Maxwell that you used to lean on pretty heavily because I would always ask, honey, when you were going to make a sale, I would watch you going into your sales calls.
Yeah.
And you would tell me you would have like a 20-minute call that you would have to do, but you would start preparing like 2 hours before that 20-minute call to make sure that you were taking the time to look at all of the different facets, look at all of the different angles so that you could be prepared for that 20 minutes and not feel, sideswiped because you would have looked at it from every single angle.
Well, yeah, I always liked, I was not a Boy Scout.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Me neither. I wasn't a Girl Scout. I lasted for like a week.
I really did. Like what they stand for, though. But their motto is "Be prepared." Boy Scouts and Girl Scout both. I think it's "Be prepared."
Yeah, be prepared.
And that's simply everything happens in real life twice, like once in your mind and then once in reality. And so people that go into life, I think being disciplined more than anything is developing an identity of preparedness. That seems to be the thing. Like when we go in to do taxes each year, like we get our receipts ready and we prepare, and then the work is in the preparation. And then once we finally sit down to do it, we can do it in half a day or a day, and we're doing $1 million of income through a tax engine and making sure that we're within a close enough tolerance that we're able to reduce our audit of risk and still be able to maintain, a healthy balance sheet and hold off on unnecessary payment for taxes by unnecessarily omitting disbursements that we can take off and write-offs. So, but if you look at being prepared, for me, as soon as there's something that needs to be done that I know there's preparation for, I immediately pull out a yellow pad and I start working out first the divergent thinking, which is the bubble maps and the abstract connections and synthesis of the overall pillars or concepts or ideas, and then taking that and pivoting it into a Kanban board, which moves from divergent thinking to convergent thinking. That's basically, divergent is just a fancy word for wide angle lens. Convergent is more focused and linear. Divergent is more big picture, bubble map, how are things related? Let's look at synthesizing. It's more right brain. Left brain is more, you do step 1 and then step 2 and then step 3. Kanban has totally changed my life with regard to that, because it allows a bridge between the nonlinear abstract thought and divergent thinking and the religious step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. That actually changes in real time in many types of projects, and Kanban allows for that based on bookmarks for each of the stages of completion for each of the separate project line items. So anyway, why do we talk about this stuff? Number one, I'm obsessed with it. I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with Kanban. I am obsessed with workflows. I am now, as of September 7th, 2025, absolutely wrapped around the axle, obsessed beyond all comprehension in the understanding and application of constraint theory. Galbraith is a different one.
Who?
No, what's the guy, constraint theory? We'll pull it up. Andrew will put it on the screen. But if we look at, the author, it's a name I'm not familiar with. Constraint theory book. Thanks for waiting, everybody, for me to look this up. Constraint theory book. Theory of Constraints is by, Amazon has it. Thanks, everybody. The name is, it's like dark brown on black background. The first name is spelled Eliyahuu, Goldrat. Don't know why I couldn't remember that one.
Elihu or something
Might be. Yeah, it's It's Eliyahu. I think it's Eliyahu. I've heard that said.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Eliyahu Goldrat. I'm struggling. Sorry, my lack of pronunciation is my own constraint here. But his book on theory of constraints typically does not come up in a lot of conversations, and it needs to. Because what we find out is that first principles applied really yields a first constraints mandate for discussing and talk about this. Once I started doing that, I literally almost tripled my income in sales and jumped to number one in my previous employer in that year when I started to apply it. And it was exciting to see that it was actually easy, because the next year I went from doing about 20 persons worth of productivity. The next year I was in position to do about 120 people's worth of productivity, and that was only slightly augmented by AI. It was almost entirely augmented by the theory of constraint process. So if you could make 100 times more money than you're making right now without changing your job, or even 30 times more money, you take somebody making $15 an hour, and in a year they're making $450 an hour. It's almost $1 million a year, right? From $15 an hour. I mean, $15 an hour, God bless you if you're making $15 an hour. We appreciate you. We need our coffee. I don't care if it's hot. Just do the best you can, right? $15 an hour is nothing. But if you can go from $15 an hour to $1 million a year in 1 year by applying the theory of constraints, what would happen in your lifetime, in your lifestyle,
well,
right?
Often attributed to Benjamin Franklin, though it isn't actually officially published by him, is the statement, failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yep.
And I see it time after time. We're big fans. I'm a huge fan of Forged in Fire. I know that the season we're like beyond, and it's been going on for years and years and years. However, when you are looking at blacksmith and you're looking at moving metal, especially when you're taking scrap metal, Jeff, they have to clean it. You're supposed to clean your metal before you can forge it, because if it's not clean,
That makes sense.
If you have a piece of metal that's got dirt on it, the dirt will burn off and it won't weld properly between the two pieces of metal, and you'll get these pits of air that will make the metal weak. And so they are constantly watching. I'm constantly watching people fail and lose the competition because they do not take the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes necessary to clean their metal properly before they go and throw it into the fire.
Yeah.
And it's these little nuances of preparation that can really make or break you in a high tense, high stressful situation. If you go into a kitchen, and I remember when Jeffrey, our son, who was 17 and he was on the line as a line cook in the kitchen, if you do not have your knives sharp, I mean, they get ready for a dinner. Like if you're opened at your restaurant at 5 p.m., they're in there at 5 a.m. getting everything prepared for that dinner rush because you could have 300, 400 people in a busy restaurant.
You don't have time to sharpen your knives in the middle of a shift.
You can't sharpen your knife. You can't even cut the onions. That's the prep. That's all the prep. That's
Yeah.
what the Michelin star restaurants understand.
That's right.
That's what just regular restaurants, that's what McDonald's came to understand with
That's right.
all the preparation required in order to flip the switch and turn on the open sign. So my question to you is, in your open sign of life, are you doing anything to prepare for a day, for a successful position at work, for, and if you are, then our accolades and our big claps go to you. If you aren't and you'd like some help, please reach out to us, send Jeff a message, send me a message, find out how we run and operate a home of 7 children, homeschooled, a wife that has been a stay-at-home mom, in essence, an efficiency expert for 30 years.
You are an efficiency
and
expert.
being able to understand how to stick to a budget and be able to, feed the family. But all of that is preparation. If I go to the grocery store without a list, I will spend 10x amount of money, and I will go every time I've ever gone over the budget, and I'm by far perfect from that. It's always
You do pretty
been
good. You feed a lot of people
It's
on not
always
much
been
money.
from lack of preparedness and lack of taking the 5 minutes required to make the list and then go to the grocery store and stick to the list and stick to my preparation and trust the process.
I'm proud of the work that you do, taking care of the budget, and I don't give you a big budget when I'm not making big dough, right? And then I have to augment out of savings or credit cards or whatever if we go over. The last couple of months, we've had some major expenses that have taken our budget out sideways. But the main thing is that you prepare, and you do prepare. You do meal prep, meal planning. You and Madeline go to the grocery store probably 3 to 4 days a week in order to keep food in the house, meals prepped, and meals served on time. I mean, you've basically served 3 meals or more plus snacks a day to 10 people every single day, 365 days a year. For 10 years, it'd be 3,600 meals times 3, which is 10,000 meals times 3 for the 3 decades. So something like 30,000 meals.
Well, it really helps to take the
10
guesswork
people.
out of it. If you, while you're organizing your refrigerator, this is just a simple tip. If you keep the same products in the salad drawer, just keep it stocked, but have it always be the same. There's always going to be lettuce. There's always going to be tomato. There's always going to be this.
And grapes.
In that drawer. And then in the meat drawer, there's always lunch meat. There's always cheese in the meat drawer. And then you've got your, you always keep strawberries, grapes, bananas. If you keep the same thing, and I'll say it again, I'll provide the consistency and I'll let God produce the variety.
Yeah.
As long as I maintain consistency, that way, when I open the drawer and it comes time to go to the grocery store and I think that because it's always the same ingredients, but there's things missing, then I know just to purchase those same ingredients. Life is too short and I am too chill and too relaxed now to get creative with variety,
Food basics.
constantly focused on some weird variety. Got to try durian, got to try this, got to try that. No, maybe for a special recipe, I'll try something new. But on the daily, we're going to have the same things. It's going to be predictable. The eggs are in the egg drawer. The butter's in the butter thing. And that way, when I go and look and I see the butter's gone, I know to buy butter. When I look into the drawer and I see something's gone, I go to fill that drawer. But by all means, if you want to have a stress-free, relaxed life, attempt to get as much as you possibly can onto autopilot so that you can do the checklist and then you can just move on.
We're not perfect, folks. We don't pretend to be. But we do find that there is much peace of mind that takes place when you start making motion toward the goals. It's the stagnation. I mean, what does your brain want? It wants dopamine. Where does dopamine come from? Aside from all the drugs that people can pump into their body, it comes from meaningful progress in real time. So if you have some form of meaningful progress in real time, whether it's writing down a list or just making a circle on your page and naming it laundry, just the simple act of writing that down and saying laundry, and then you go, okay, I got to do systems. Then what's your framework for systems? Then you bubble map out what are the possible algorithmic things that you could do, and then you structure those into a linear format, and then you go through a process of elimination and binary. And that's what I did yesterday. And now I've got hundreds of pounds of laundry, and I mean, I probably have, 200 shirts. I've got 20 or 30 custom dress shirts, suits, boots. I got a dozen pairs of jeans. I don't know where all these clothes came from. I love them all. But if you have a dozen pairs of jeans and 50 T-shirts and 30 dress shirts and 4 suits and 150 silk handmade ties and Louis Vuitton and Ferragamo shoes and
mixed
boots
in with
and
Target and
mixed
Walmart
in with easy. Whoa. We send the Kirkland shirts back for Christmas.
Hey, I got Time and True. Don't knock
you
it.
did. You found a pair
Walmart
of
Time and True pants.
You found a pair of shorts for me. Thank you.
Those were probably brand name, but
that
anyway.
worked out. But to be able to do that and sit there and say, okay, I'm going to put a system together so that my clothes can remain ready for use. And then all of a sudden now I feel kind of good. Like I can go into my closet and pull out stuff, and it's exciting. So there's all those things that you systematize, all that prep work that you do. It's not for nothing. It establishes self-discipline, it establishes identity, and once you put the systems in place and you get that mindset going, pretty soon you start thinking, wow, well, if I can organize my closet, if I can manage my car, if I can manage my taxes, if I can manage paying bills on time, and then you start carving out a little bit of float each month, then that float gets reinvested back into books and tapes and CDs and DVDs and digital courses. Over a period of a long time, you end up developing wisdom and processes and an ability to trust those systems to a level of productivity that will separate you from the masses in this these economically uncertain times.
I heard it this way just this morning. If you look at a cloud, it's full of water. And if all that water dumped at one time, your Mercedes would be annihilated. The earth could not sustain the amount because of all of the weight and the pressure. And if it all came out, and yet it's designed, the clouds and the rain are designed in such a way that even just a little delicate rose can get a drop of water and be nourished from it. So when we get impatient and we get frustrated because we wanted to lose the weight yesterday, because we want it all done yesterday.
You're doing a great job, by the way. You're doing a great job.
Consider the reality.
Let me brag on you for just a second.
Consider the reality that all of the rain, if it fell at one time, would wipe us out. But yet, if we allow to receive just a drop at a time,
we were out at a restaurant yesterday, and I had a huge breakfast, and you brought a half a grapefruit in your own plastic bag and had 2 pieces of toast and a coffee for breakfast. I couldn't believe it. The bill for breakfast was like $52, of which $2 of that was yours, and 50 fat-making dollars of breakfast was mine. And I just think, it's hard to form new habits, to control what you eat, especially when times are stressful. And we've certainly had some incredibly difficult times, but I respect what you're doing with diet, and it's showing up in your ability to you're hitting the Peloton bike every morning, and you've been doing that just great. Your energy level seems to be really consistent, and you're going to bed on time and sleeping and resting. So I'm proud of you for that. it is not easy to be disciplined with what we put into our mouths when stuff tastes really
But
good.
hopefully, as our perspective changes and our speech changes, and we're able to recognize that discipline is simply just a function of practice, and we're either practicing something or we're not. I'm practicing to get better at health and how I feel. And so in that practice, it requires some discipline, and it's okay. I'm gonna be disciplined some days, and I'm gonna probably fall off and be undisciplined on other days. But on the whole, they add up.
Are you working? Last thing, and I'll finish with this. In his book, Napoleon Hill's book, You Can Control Your Own Mind. There is a chapter. There's three main chapters. I don't remember what the first two are, but the one that really sticks out for me is controlled attention. Go in there, get a copy of that book. Read what the founder of Pepsi, the founder of Walmart, the founder of Wrigley Spearmint Gum, Henry Ford, John D. Rockefeller. Read what these guys say about controlled attention. It is King Gillette of the Gillette Safety Razor Company. It is controlled attention, focused and consistently, persistently driving toward building something simple, even though there's complexity involved in it. It is that repetition over and over and over of a single purpose in life, backed by a burning, white-hot, ferocious desire to see that thing come, that ends up building what he calls in the book hypnotic rhythm or momentum in time. What's the difference between somebody who makes $100 and $1 billion? It's momentum. It's momentum of controlled attention over time that ends up attracting, just like a whirlpool, all of the capital, all of the people, all of the resources that you need in order to accomplish your goal. Thanks for being with us, everybody. This is Jeff Heilman from the Jeff Heilman Project. We'll see you again next time.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and continue to send us your comments and whatever you would like to talk about, because we're here for you at the Jeff Heilman Project. God bless you guys. Have an awesome time.
Thanks,
See you
everybody,
next
for joining
week.
us. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
next time.